So just take a few minutes maybe and close your eyes and connect with your inner guidance, connect with your heart. And just ask maybe, what is your intention for tonight? What brought you here? What would you like to receive? And just placing that into the circle, into the universe, so you know what is available. And then go ahead and open your eyes, and I'm just going to ask you to give your name, because a lot of people, we don't know everyone, and it just kind of brings everyone present to the group. Start.
I'm Brian.
Zora. Stevie.
Janet.
Christina.
David.
April.
Jan.
Suzanne.
And I'm Joyous. And this is Lily. Jesus. Okay. Any questions before we start about anything in particular?
That's
what?
pretty general.
Yeah,
there,
that's a
Joyce.
general question. I just felt like I needed to ask, is there any, that's a real general question. Let me just kind of state, I don't know if you can read the board up here. The title of the course is The Undefended Self. And it's important to know that you are not your defense. We're going to be talking about the overall defense patterns that can be developed and a little bit about how they're developed. But to know that you are not your defense, okay? You are not your defense. So as we talk about this, it's learning how we kind of defend ourselves. And the idea is, if I am full of my life force and my energy and my true self that I'm meant to be, then the energy is free flowing and I'm connected with source, I'm guided, and I'm full of life and energy, and my energy is expanded, and I'm constantly in touch with my guidance and so forth. But what we do is we learn these patterns that started even from childhood, where we kind of either shrink our energy, we defend ourselves, we separate ourselves from source. But when we do that, it's almost like a gift in being able to find the other side of that, okay? So your defense helps you uncover your true self. It's kind of like, as Esther Hicks says, it's knowing what you don't want so you know what you do want. So there are gifts, and that's basically what we're getting to, is not just to discover the defense, but how we can heal it and find the other side of that, and find the gift that actually the defense brings. So I want you to kind of keep that in mind as the overall reason we're talking about this. It's good to kind of know, what my crutch is and how I defend myself. And those are not necessarily bad things, because it's something that we learned actually from childhood that have helped us grow into who we are. But it's knowing it and recognizing it, and then kind of finding the other side of that, healing that part of ourselves, so that we can not have to be responsive and defending ourselves constantly, but to be able to be full of life and energy and connected with source. Okay. Now, any questions on that? I'm going to move forward. Okay. You all have a handout. Fran, would you like a handout? Okay. Someone get Brian a handout.
Oh.
They're over there on the table. Yeah. This is all of this information tonight is from the Barbara Brennan book. I'll do some resources first. And some of you are familiar with this. This is a school that I attended for 4 years in Florida, 5 weeks out of the year for 4 years, 2004 to 2008. So a lot of information is taken from this, because this is what we studied through the whole school system, and how the energy is developed and the psychological reasoning behind that and how it's developed. But a shorter version of that is this little book right here, Free Your True Self, because she's taken a lot of Barbara Brennan's information and concised it down to smaller information, and it's easier to read than the big book. This is, and it's on, no, it's not on that handout that I gave you. This is Anne Marquier, Marquier. I actually have one extra that's a little bit damaged if anybody wants to buy it, but you can get it on Amazon. I don't know, I think it's like $15 or so. Anyway, if you're interested in more information, so basically tonight we're going to be kind of doing an overview of all of the characterologies and how we defend ourselves, and then we'll be taking it more in detail over the next 5 weeks, and how, because she uses Freudian's characterologies of like the schizoid, the masochist, and the psychopath. Sounds kind of crazy, but we're all a little bit crazy, right? And so it's knowing that we all have a little bit of that, of each characterology and how we defend ourselves. You might be stronger in one area than another area. I know that I'm very schizoid, that I like to pull my energy up, and I'd just rather be up here than down here.
And you
so,
call that schizoid?
That's one of the characteristics of the schizoid personality.
It likes to be in the ethers.
Yeah.
Right.
And basically, so it's learning the reverse of that and being able to, which I've been working on for like 15 years, and being able to be grounded and bringing that wonderful energy that's in the divine level into the body and feeling that divineness and aliveness. So that's kind of the reverse of that. But it's knowing that as a child, sometimes that was a good way for me to escape. You know, if there was trauma or things going on in the household, you know, I was the fourth of 5 children. I mean, it wasn't really chaotic, but, you know, very authoritarian, you know, get your spanking, you're always in trouble kind of, you know, situation that we kind of all grew up with. And so being out of the body is a good way to cope, you know. And so it can be a coping skill, you know, if I'm ever in a situation that I really need to do that, I'm really good at it. Whereas for somebody else, this is what we're going to look at. These are all, front page is all energetic patterns of ways that we defend ourselves, basically, of ways that we kind of escape from the true essence of who we are and holding that divine energy. So here's a picture of all of them. Then if you skip over to the, it's front and back, skip over to the 3rd page, that's where it starts a little bit on the information there. So I'd really just kind of like to read through a lot of this information and see if you have questions. It says, we all create blocks because we see the world as unsafe. We block in patterns that involve our whole energy system. Our energetic defense systems are designed to repel, to defend aggressively or passively against an incoming force. They are designed to show power and thus scare off any aggressor, or they are designed to get us attention indirectly without admitting that it is what we want. This is a quote I picked up several years ago from when I actually went to my 10-year reunion at the Barbara Brennan School. And I picked this quote up and it really didn't make a whole lot of sense. I had to read it over and over and over, so I'm going to read it. It says, negative intentionality is a defense. It stems from the innate belief that the world cannot be trusted, and the only way we can protect ourselves is by being as mean as the world is supposed to be, or meaner. I'm going to read it one more time. Negative intentionality is a defense. In other words, it's kind of the way of what our world holds right now. It's the idea that the belief that the world cannot be trusted, that it's not safe. And so that we have to find a way to protect ourselves. And that's where the defense patterns come up. Because we believe that the world is unsafe. So we have to be as mean or meaner to protect ourselves. And so that kind of explains the idea. Once you get to a place where we can be connected and we begin to trust the world and the universe and that connection, we have that connection, we don't need the defense patterns because it's free flowing and we're connected. So that's kind of where we're headed. I wanted to throw that out there. Okay. Examples of energetic defense patterns are on the page that you're looking at. These defense systems are employed when the individual feels in danger. In other words, it's all around, based around the world is unsafe, so I have to defend myself, which is hopefully where we're moving, is into our heart space and the energy of the world to know that the world is a safe place. But right now, we don't have that consciousness in the world and in ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to take volunteers to read kind of about each one of the characterologies, and you can look at the pictures, but it defines a little bit more about these pictures, and it starts with the first one, which is the porcupine. Do you have volunteers to read?
All right.
Read good.
These the,
When the porcupine.
oh,
With the porcupine.
with the porcupine, usually whitish gray in color, the person's aura becomes a spiny and painful to touch. It is sharp. Many times when I put my hand on someone, when he did not want it there, I could feel the spines going through my hand. Most people respond to this defense by distancing.
Distancing. So, any comments on that? Have you, and a lot of these you'll be able to go, oh yeah, I know when that happened. I know when I was kind of around somebody and it was like, they were like, you really didn't want to be around them because I felt a little bit prickly. And it's always easier to identify it in someone else than it is in ourselves. But just be aware of, because your consciousness might go to, okay, yeah, I kind of know what that's like. And that's kind of the idea of reading through all of these. Okay, Dan, you're doing great. So.
In the withdrawal form of defense, the portion of the person's consciousness and aura that is being threatened simply leaves his body in a cloud of light blue energy. The eyes will have a glazed look, although he pretends to be fully there listening to you.
Yeah. So that's the second one that I was talking about, that withdrawal, kind of the schizoid characterology that is really one of my, I know is one of my patterns. Okay, go ahead.
The same is true for the person who is beside himself. This particular configuration is more long-term than withdrawal, which may last only for a few seconds up to hours. The beside himself manifestation usually lasts for a longer period, perhaps days or even years. I have seen people who have been particularly out of their bodies for years for some trauma or early surgery. In one case, a young woman had open heart surgery at the age of 2 years. She was 21 when I worked with her to help her energy fields to seat themselves more firmly in her body. Her higher bodies would particularly disconnect and float out, up, and behind her. This disconnection resulted in a disconnection from her feelings.
Okay, stop there for a minute, see if anybody has any questions. So the withdrawal and the beside yourself, it's like your energy field is distorted in some way. And it's not fullness in your presence. I didn't bring any, I should show you pictures of what it looks like when we're really full and in our presence. I have something for it, but we'll look at those of what it really looks like.
So
Okay.
is this like psychologically, like if you have a tendency to dissociate, like
Correct.
dissociative type behavior
Exactly.
would be put in this category?
Yes. Yes, very good answer. Okay, doing great, Jan. If you get tired, let me know.
Verbal denial is associated with much energy, usually yellow, in the head, a severe neck block, and depleted energy in the lower half, which is pale and still. In order to keep the status quo, the person stays active verbally so as to sustain some feeling of being alive. This verbal exchange keeps the energy flowing in the head.
Okay, so I'm sure you've all been around people that they constantly talk all the time, and it's just kind of like their way of kind of really ignoring what's inside here. If I'm constantly out here talking and looking around out here, it's not wanting to go inside and find out really who I am. Okay, go ahead.
Oral, is that the word? Oral suckling?
Yep, oral suckling.
Okay.
Yep.
Oral suckling is closely related to verbal denial in that it is effective in sucking energy from those around in order to fill the person's own field. which he usually is unable to do from the natural surrounding environment. In other words, there is something amiss in the person's ability to metabolize the organ supply from the surrounding atmosphere, causing him to need predigested energy from others. One can feel this form of sucking in verbal prattle that is boring and exhausting to the recipient, or see it in the vacuum cleaner eyes that some people possess. These people love to be around others in some form of socializing. There are other people who need to discharge an excess of energy. Masochistic. Yeah, you got it.
Got it.
Who make good partners with the oral suckers. Together, they fill each other's needs quite nicely.
Good. 13, there's more information. So I know probably all of us have been around the oral suckers, and a lot of times it's when you're with that person very long, you begin to feel drained because they're sucking energy from you. The idea is if I am connected to the source of the earth and my energy, my chakras are full, and I know how to draw in my own fullness and my own energy, then I can do that. But for the oral sucker, and it'll get more when we start talking about them, a lot of times they didn't get fed properly when they were little, and so they're constantly trying to get that energy from other people.
Physically fed?
Could be.
Or just emotionally, everything.
Yeah, as a young child, they probably didn't get the nourishment that they needed physically, and so yeah, it kind of internalizes energetically. Either way, it could be physically or energetically. Another key thing with that one is sometimes people that talk real soft, and you kind of have to go like this to kind of hear what they're saying. They're really kind of pulling you in to kind of pull your energy. So I thought that was always interesting, because it's like now when people talk real soft, it's kind of like, oh, where are you going? You know, and there are ways, and that's what we'll be learning more as we discuss each of the characterologies, because the oral character is one of the characterologies in particular that we will study, in ways to help you learn to connect with your own inner source. In ways, even if you're around another person that is oral sucking you, kind of how to help them by protecting. A lot of it's some kind of a protection, and it's also helping ground and help them learn to ground. I can remember in the Barbara Brennan school in class one time, Barbara Brennan was on the stage with a girl that was actually doing that characterology, and we don't know it. In other words, it's like she wasn't aware that she was sucking Barbara's energy, or the people in the class, basically.
So you're not talking about energy vampires? The ones that...
It's similar. It's similar. I don't know what your definition of an energy vampire is.
I mean, I guess usually, well then, maybe we have a group
it
definition.
sounds like the same
It
thing.
sounds like probably
Yeah.
the same thing. They're getting their energy from someone else instead of getting the energy from their earth and the support around, and their inner strength and the inner of who they are. So it could be a vampire, if that's what you want to call it.
Kind of like that, or like when they're talking about masochist a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen it come in both types, like
Okay.
the
And usually
kind that
there's
have come at you
overlaps.
with the problems and they're sucking your energy that way, masochistic, versus the energy vampires that we tend to think of are the more like aggressive, like it's not so
Yeah.
much about their problems as like control in a way,
Right.
but
it's
that's
kind
not
of an
quite it
overlap
either.
of both of them.
I mean,
I think we'll come into that one.
okay.
It's similar. It's similar. Okay. Enough on the oral. We'll keep going. All right, Deanne, you doing okay?
Yep.
Okay.
The hooks I have seen on some people's heads usually are on people who have a psychopathic character structure and who are in the process of being confronted by, say, a group of people. They become very threatened in such a situation and form a hook on the top of the head. If things really get hot, they will throw the hook at whomever they see as the aggressor. This hook is usually accompanied with a verbal statement. On the other hand, if this type of person wants to confront someone, she may very well try to grasp the other by the head with mental energy. The possible effect on the person being confronted is to be held within the confronter's energy field until the latter is sure her point is being made and accepted as she wishes. This type of offense is very threatening to the recipient because from all appearances she is being approached logically with very rational steps leading to the right conclusion. But the between the lines message being conveyed is that the recipient had better agree. This kind of exchange is usually accompanied with the underlying implication that the person being confronted is bad and wrong, and the confronter is good and right.
Okay. Questions on that? It's kind of, that person that kind of has to feel like they're always right, and they'll get in a conversation, kind of trying to prove that they're right kind of thing, and they may be throwing energetic hooks while they're doing that verbal discussion. For me, it's like I kind of get this little thing in my belly. It's like when I'm around a person, it's like they're trying to control you in some sense, or it may overlap with some of the other character images. Okay.
Okay. Tentacles are oozing, slippery, silent, and heavy. They reach for your solar plexus in an effort to capture your essence and pull it out, to be devoured by the seeker of security. This person is full of his own essence but doesn't know what to do with it because he feels that allowing it to move means humiliation. Thus, he is caught in despair and even loses touch with his own essence. He may adopt the silent, brooding stance for a while. Then the tentacles work at their own essence, pulling him down. The silent brooding is very noisy, however, on the energetic level. He stands out in a room full of people who are actively having fun. Soon he will be surrounded by those who wish to help him, and he will unconsciously but cleverly and graciously thank each person for the help offered, saying why it won't work and ask for other suggestions. And so the game goes on. The tentacled person thinks he needs something from the outside, but what he needs is to give out. He may then try verbal arrows to provoke someone to anger. These arrows are not only verbally painful, but also energetically painful, flying through the air and striking the recipient very precisely and effectively. The archer unconsciously hopes this will cause enough pain to elicit anger, which will then give him an excuse to release his own anger in such a way as to avoid humiliation. In this willful, precise mental way, he tries to humiliate the other person and at the same time avoid having feelings in the lower half of his body.
Okay. There's a lot of overlapping there, and how how we unconsciously maybe do these things and we're not really even aware of it. The brooding, and then the going in or the going out, or there's just a lot of different ways that we learn these patterns, like I said earlier, to kind of protect ourselves. Okay. Any questions on any of that? It's a little,
That was a lot.
that was a lot
Yeah.
of information there on the brooder and the tentacles and how energetically things are going on an energetic system, and you may be sitting and having a conversation with somebody, and you actually are kind of empathetic and you're feeling sorry for them, and so they're kind of pulling your energy in, and then they're throwing, it gets really a little bit crazy energetically. We can't necessarily see all that. Obviously, Barbara Brennan could, and so that's where a lot of this information is coming from.
Well, I think people do a combination of these things.
So that
People can be doing, I think people can be doing a lot of these things
Oh,
at
yeah.
one time.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Like, one person could be doing 3 or 4 of these things
Exactly.
within a very short sequence of time.
Oh, yeah, right. And so
What?
We're all at once. I'm
Yeah.
a
Right.
sister.
I was thinking of my sister too.
As I said
I was thinking of my
earlier,
sister.
it's easier to see it in someone else than it is to see it in ourselves. But that's okay, that's what we're doing tonight, is
She
identifying,
is a sociopath.
because when you can see it in other people, then you can begin to kind of recognize, is it going on in me? Because if I can see it in someone else, there's probably a little bit of it going on in me, I just don't know it. I was telling them last night in the Barbara Brennan School, you know, it was break time. It was probably my second year, and I remember sitting down at the table, because I was kind of the quiet, withdrawn one. On top of being the schizoid, you know, I wasn't an outgoing person. And this girl came and was sitting, you know, and of course she was the more popular one. I felt like I was back in school, even though I was in my 50s. And so we were sitting there, and she looked at me and she said, "You're sucking my energy." Got up and walked off, and I'm like,
What a bitch.
oh. Well, in the school,
Oh
it
my
was kind of
God.
like, for me, it was kind
That
of
was
like
a
an
chemical she
awareness.
threw out.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, you know, I didn't, well, I might have been upset because I don't remember back then, but it was an aha of like, I didn't know I was doing that. And she was more observant, because a lot of the people in the Barbara Brennan could see and were more visual and
Okay.
was aware. And for her, that's what she was perceiving. So I kind of had to step back and go, yeah, you know, I really did kind of admire her because she was more outgoing. So I probably was, you know, and just not even aware of it. So that's kind of my statement here, is because we are not always aware that we're doing these. And so that's a part of the process here, is being aware so I can transform that. And knowing the more I am in my fullness, then I don't have to look out here for it. I can find it from within. Do you have a question? or
Well, I was just thinking out loud about that. Actually, you were noticing and appreciating her outgoing and her
Yes.
well-rounded, and she
Right.
perceived it as you sucking energy from her.
Yeah,
And I very might have
Interesting.
been.
two different things.
You
And
can-
then who's right?
You can, yeah, there's no right
Right,
or wrong.
right.
But for me, it was an aha, and I had to go inside then and check, is that what I'm really doing? And I probably was. I just wasn't
Oh,
aware of it.
I'd be like, bitch, you better step off. I don't want you or your energy. Go back to your popular
Yeah,
crowd.
maybe she was
I
wrong.
don't think we interacted a whole lot after that.
You didn't?
I don't remember being close friends with her,
Right.
but that's okay.
You were really
I learned
watching.
something from her, right? You know, that's what it's all about.
Right.
So, exactly.
Right.
All right, Jan, finishes up on these
Okay.
paragraphs here.
The person using boundary containment will simply remove himself from the
Skip to a-
Did I skip it?
Hysterical defense.
Okay.
Yeah.
The person who uses hysterical defense, thanks for keeping me on the up and up there,
I would
David.
have lost too.
Who uses hysterical defense will gladly respond to the arrows by exploding. The hysterical type will explode in a way that will imping upon everyone's field with lightning bolts and explosions of color in such fury as to threaten and intimidate with the sheer force of power and chaos. His purpose is to clear the room of everyone.
Let's stop here for a minute. How many of you know a person like that just gets hysterical all the time, and there's like, everything's a drama, and you know, that's kind of their world, you know? So that's kind of what this person
My
is.
toddler?
Yeah,
All
so-
toddlers.
Yeah, all toddlers are learning that, exactly. And so, yeah, they can learn how to use it inappropriately or appropriately and work with it, and the
Everything's
parents.
horrible or everything's great.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, last paragraph.
The person using boundary containment will simply remove himself from the situation while strengthening the thickening his boundary in order to remain unaffected. The message thus conveyed is one of superiority. Another may simply state his supremacy with a strongly ordered, well-controlled power will display which blows up and lights up his aura, so that there is no question of who is in charge here and who is not to be tampered with.
So yeah, a lot of times that person that looks like they have it all together, you know, and everything's just perfect for them is really kind of
Keeping themselves.
And that's part of the rigid, which is one of the characterologies of, you know, they look like you know, their body's all in shape and they've got their world together, you know, but then something comes along and, you know, crashes their world and they're like, ah. But yeah, that's kind of what that one is. So here's a quote that was in this second book here. If you can clearly know your prison, you can design and plan your escape. So it's kind of what this is all about, you know, how we separate ourselves from source, how we separate ourselves from others, and being able to transform that. And to know again, we have the structures, but we are not these structures. We are not these defense patterns. We have them. There's a purpose, I believe, in the universe for them, because as we learn the reverse of them, then we can come more into our fullness and our aliveness. That's the whole idea. And that's what we're working towards.
In some ways, they're survival. I mean,
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're definitely
absolutely.
survival, and as we look at each characterology, we'll see how and why it's developed even from an early age, even from birth. You know, if the child is abandoned, you know, you learn abandonment and the issues that go around that. But then again, Barbara Brennan describes it like as a gift, as a pearl that's underneath all these layers. And when I unpeel those layers, then I find more of that essence of who I am. So the pearl is the essence, and as I unfold that layer of abandonment or defense pattern that I'm working with, then I know more of me. It's kind of like these layers, and so I may be like this with all my defense patterns, and we'll look at the energy, like for a schizoid, for a masochist, and for a characterology, and what their energy system looks like around them, how it's shaped, and how it's been developed over the years, and then how that shifts. In fact, this might be the perfect time to read. In this book, at the end, she has when that characterology is transformed for each of the characterologies, specific qualities of the soul to be recovered. In the schizoid, the capacity to have concrete achievements. In the oral characterology, the soul recovers fulfillment. The masochist, joy and power of the soul. Psychopath's true love, humility, and integrity. In the rigid, and recovers sensitivity and flexibility. In the declaration of transformation, the schizoid transforms into I exist. I bring that energy in and I become who I am. And the oral is I'm fulfilled. It's not constantly looking out here for what I can get. It's finding that fullness from within, and so feeling fulfilled. The masochist is I am free. The masochist is kind of like the doormat in the victimhood. When they come into their own power, then they feel free. I have joy in my life, my heart. The psychopath, I am genuinely able to love. And the rigid is I feel free and I adapt. Some of the qualities that emerge when the structure is transformed. The schizoid has creativity, intuition, impersonality, lightness of being. The oral has generosity, abundance, fulfillment, pleasure to be alive. The masochist has compassion, service, support. The psychopath, the ability to confer power and to inspire others to have their power, integrity, and dynamicism. And the rigid has a quality of courage, centeredness, and mastery. So as we're transforming these defense patterns, there are gifts that will come as we transform in this pattern, this defense pattern, into who we really are, the true self. Okay. So that's what we have to look forward to, right? All right. So that gives you a little bit of information about the defense patterns and this page and all of that information. So we're going to kind of back up. We're going to kind of scan through. I've lost a page. There it is. The other pages, Yeah, go back to the one that has figure 13.1, major aspects of each character structure, personality, makeup. We're not gonna really read through all of these, cause it lists each of the characterologies and like, the arrest of development, it tells you like when it probably was developed. Like for the schizoid, when it was originally developed was probably at birth or before birth. A lot of schizoids have the, like many past lives of being tortured, and so they don't necessarily want to come into this earth one more time and be tortured. There's that kind of belief system there, which was part of what was going on with me. I feel like I came in with what they call existential fear. So I could, I've gone back and done some rebirthing things, and it's like your birth, and you see the bright lights in the birthing room, and it's like you really don't even want to be there.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of why the energy is out of the body. For the oral, it kind of starts with development in the babyhood feeding. In other words, in the breastfeeding or not being able to be fed and those kinds of things. So even though it's physical, there's still that energetic abundant of there's not enough, and there's constantly out there trying to suck and get what I need out here because there's not enough inside here. The psychopath is early childhood. The masochist is autonomy stage where they become their independence. And the rigid is more puberty, when they come more into puberty stage. And it lists the traumas. A lot of this, like I said, I'm not going to read over. You can read over it. The fault, the schizoid is fear. The oral is greed. The psychopath is untruthfulness. The masochist is hatred. And pride is the rigid. On the physical build, jumping down to the bottom part, the schizoid usually has a long, tall, skinny body. Not always skinny, but usually tall because their energy is more up and out. Not that I'm tall, because I have other characterologies also. The oral's body is usually skin and a little bit collapsed and pulled in. The psychopath has an inflated chest and is usually top heavy. Their energy's more up on the top. The masochist is head forward and heavy. Usually their body is sometimes kind of like they imagine like stuffed with pillows. It's usually sometimes people that have extra weight, because if they feel like they're the victim, it's like I'm putting a padding here to kind of protect me energetically. So there's usually some excess weight. Not always. These are just general overall thoughts. And the rigid person is rigid back, pelvis tipped, back, tip back. But they're also usually, like I said, sometimes that athlete that really looks like they're in perfect tip-top shape. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. So you can kind of read through theirs and maybe already kind of begin to pick out, oh, I think I'm a little bit that, I think I'm a little bit that, and begin to kind of see any of the patterns that you're kind of already aware of. Let's see if there's anything else. Any questions on anything that you're seeing as you read over that?
What does, spastic mean? I know it means uncontrollable muscles in a way, but.
Which one are you on? Which?
Oh, like it says body tension on the, rigid person or the psychopathic.
And it says
Spastic.
Spastic.
Mm-hmm.
To me, spastic means, it's hard to describe. It's kind of like your.
Leg syndrome, what is that,
Restless leg
restless leg
syndrome.
syndrome, something like that?
Could be. Spastic to me is just kind of like you respond without really thinking it through.
Yeah.
It's part of that maybe too.
Yeah.
It could be restless leg syndrome. Yeah, anything else that you're seeing that you have a question on? Gives the primary chakras, the ones that are probably more open. The energetic defense patterns are on the bottom there on that first page. We just looked at. So the schizoid's energetic pattern is more withdrawal, porcupine, and beside himself. The oral characterology is more the oral sucking, the verbal denial, and the hysteria, which is kind of interesting. The psychopath is, the defense pattern that we looked at would be the hook, the mental grasp, and the hysteria. The masochist is more kind of like that brooding and pulling in and feeling sorry for yourself, or the tentacles where you're kind of sending them out to others. It's kind of like that passive aggressive kind of thing, maybe with the tentacles. And the rigid is more the power, will, display, boundary containment. On the third part, question, Jan?
Yeah.
Got it.
So, on the oral,
Mm-hmm.
babyhood, feeding, so if you knew of somebody that, you know, had a child and there were issues, I mean, is there a way to work with that, to help them and so that they don't go through their whole life?
You mean like stop it before it turns into that? Like a child that has gone through this, is that what you mean?
Yeah,
That's a good question.
you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Okay.
Here's my take on that. This is basically for us to see where I have the trauma and where I can heal myself. If I see it in someone else, no matter what it is, whether it's a baby or whether it's an adult, and I see it in that. I think we've talked about this a little bit, because I have 10 grandkids, and it was very interesting to watch, even the first time that my son went into the Army, and I watched my 2-year-old develop a pattern of pulling within, where she was more outgoing and energetic. And it was like, what do I do? How do I help her? You know, and so it's kind of the same thing you're asking. If I see, you know, a parent or whatever, or a kid maybe that's not getting the feed, or they're feeding them inappropriately and they're whatever, it's kind of like I had to come to the awareness that, and this is the whole Barbara Brennan theory, is that the trauma, the world, the way the world was created by the divine is basically so that we could, in the third dimension, which is where we're at, is so that we could experience these traumas, these experiences, so that we could eventually heal and know the other side of it. And with each of my 10 grandkids, it's been interesting to watch how each one of them have slowly developed maybe different patterns and different, what I call defense patterns. I've watched them develop, and I've watched it from a distance, because it's like, even when we do energy work as a healer, you can't go in and take an energy piece out of somebody's system if that's what they need to, that's on their journey and that's what they need to grow from. Because we chose to come here for a particular reason, to learn our goal and our task. As Barbara Brennan says, we have a divine task, an individual task, and a global task. We come in with that, and so the traumas and the experiences that we have that are, quote, negative or bad or whatever we want to label them, are actually gifts. It's an opportunity to go, okay, that may be what I see is happening in this particular situation. If I step in and take that out, then they may not ever learn what they need to learn in this particular lifetime. So it's a matter of knowing, you know, how I can help, what I can do. You know, that doesn't mean I don't ever say to my kids or whatever, you know, consider the possibility that, you know, you might try this or that, you know, or whatever, but then it's totally up to them. And then I've also watched the transformation of some of them also, as they've healed from certain maybe traumas or situations. So it's given me the opportunity to observe it firsthand, and how the trauma is like, oh my God, they're gonna destroy that child, you know, or I see what they're doing, what can I do about it?
Right.
You know, and so it's a lot of acceptance, and basically the main thing that I have learned throughout life and through this work is when I work on myself and I heal myself, it transforms forward and backward and generational through the family. So when I heal a part of my abandonment or whatever, and that's one of the things I've noticed with my daughter in particular. I adopted 2 children at ages 5 and 6. My daughter in particular had attachment disorders because she was 5 and had been in an abusive in foster homes and so forth. And so being able, and so it was difficult. We'll go through this whole story. I'm trying to make it as short as possible. But knowing, we started going to counseling, I'll just start it with that, at a very young age. And then they got to an age where the counselor said, you can't really make them go anymore. When they become teenagers, you're pulling against the tide. She said, so, you know, if they want to come, fine, but you can't make them go. And so I said, can I continue to go? So it was like, I need help. Even though I was a school counselor and young and thought I knew it all, I was like, it was very difficult. And one of the main things that I discovered from all of that was as I shifted and changed through counseling, my relationship with my family, with members changed. And I saw it firsthand as I shifted. And even over the years, as I've come more into my own essence and my power and constantly healing myself and clearing myself out, my relationship with my daughter has completely changed also, unknowingly and in so many ways. And it's been fun to watch. And, you know, instead of trying to, quote, make her into who I wanted her to be, it's been an unfolding as I clear, then it helps her clear and become more of who she is. I've watched it unfold. That was a long answer to
I
your
got it.
question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a question? That's a great question, because it's, I mean, we're such caring and people that, yeah, we're more out here trying to fix everybody else and not aware that the more I heal myself, the more I clear myself, and I have this connection that sets out a vibration in the universe that's helping heal the universe. And so even from that very young age or that time period, it made me aware of the importance of the more I work on myself, which it seems like I've been doing in some way ever since then. And in particular, the Barbara Brennan School in 4 years completely changed my life, because every week that I would go, basically, it was an intense 4 or 5 days of clearing and what's going on with you, what's here now. I've probably heard that a million times. What's here now, and what is it trying to teach you? Because the universe constantly presents situations for us to learn. If we're open to that and see what that is, then we're willing to be able to shift and change that. So that's my preaching part for tonight.
That's good.
Question.
Well, so if you're a schizoid type and you know that you've had past lives where you've been tortured,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, and you pretty clearly that some part of you does not want to be here.
Didn't want
What
to
is
be
the
here.
lesson? How? Because I have the what you're saying. I've told you I've seen stuff
Right.
exactly past
Right.
lives. Hey, I'm being tortured. This
Right.
is not fun.
Right.
Yeah. No wonder you don't want to be here. What is the lesson you're supposed to be learning there?
To trust the world and know that it's a safe place. It's not easy, and it doesn't come from up here.
Oh, I know.
It comes from an embodiment of knowing who I am and why I'm here. And it's a feeling and a sensation that doesn't come from the mental. One of the things I did my very first year in the Barbara Brennan School, they said, honey, if you don't get back in your body, you're not going to pass the first year. I was spent that much time outside my body that the teachers knew it. And I was like, I think I'm in my body. You know, what do you mean? I don't understand. But a lot of it, and that was the beginning of physical kinds of things I did, of getting physical body work so I could feel my body in the sensation, because my body was frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Until I can begin to feel the sensation of being alive and feel the universe energy. That was just one piece of it. I mean, I did things like colonics and rolfing and anything to get in touch with my body over like a 4 or 5 week period, and I went back to school and they said, your energy looks totally different. Of course, that was only the beginning, because that was just the beginning of getting in touch with me, because I've done tons of work since then of learning to feel safe in the body. That's a key thing for the schizoid, of being able to feel safe. I can remember looking in my backyard and there was a field out there where they had just plowed, and I thought, okay, they say to be grounded, I should go lay down in one of the crevices of the dirt, you know, and I'm like, yeah! I couldn't even fathom the idea of being that connected to the earth. But the more I've worked on myself, the more I can do that now. I feel very connected, and I can take my energy all the way down to the core of the earth, which I couldn't do before. So it's just little by little pieces of unraveling and unfolding, of feeling safe in my body and who I am.
Okay.
It's taken a long time, but it's worth it. Because basically then what you can do is bring that, like I said earlier, that divine energy that you feel when you're out there. To be able to feel that in embodiment is 100 times better. Makes me shiver. It feels good. Making my head itch also. Okay, great questions. Anybody else have a question? Okay. So what we're going to do to end up with then is kind of a guided meditation. So you can put these papers away. And one of the things we'll do at the end of every session is a meditation to kind of help with any of the clearings of whatever you're feeling and whatever you're going through. So some of you are familiar with my magic bowl that I just like to play. It kind of helps us get in that meditative state. And I would encourage you, when you hear that, don't go up and out of your body. Because that's a really high pitch. It's actually kind of the pineal, and it does give you a tendency to go out. But what you want to do is when you hear that sound and that vibration, bring it into the body and be able to feel the vibration in the body. So the more you can feel the body, it's a body orientation. Your body is your monitor. The body tells you what's going on. Every time I do a session with my BIP, I still do sessions with my Barbara Brennan integrational practitioner twice a month. And we do it on the phone, and it's feeling into the body, what's going on there, what's it talking to me, because your body holds the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. It holds everything. And so if I can stay in my body and feel the vibrations and feel everything, I'm working on all levels of the field, instead of just the mental, which is up here trying to figure out and analyze and everything, or the spiritual, which is way up here, and I'm bypassing all of these other things. We need to learn to use all of them. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and it's all held within the body. So the more you can stay in your body with any meditation that we do, the more clearing is going to happen. Okay, so you can close your eyes. And I'm just going to kind of have you go into your heart space first, because that's a good place to go. And just kind of begin to connect. And then I'm going to play the bowl again, stay in the body and feel the vibration through the body. I may do some toning also. Inviting your guides and angels and support to be with us as we do this meditation and clearing. Activating the higher dimension of you, the higher self. Feel the vibration in your body. Know that you are the divine being essence in this body. And you are a part of this body. The body is not separate. It holds it all. Feel the divine essence through your body. If you can't feel it through the whole body, then just connect with the heart and breathe in and out of the heart and feel that love and appreciation there. So to take you a little bit deeper, we're going to step either into an elevator, or you can imagine that you're going down a flight of stairs. We're gonna go from 1 to 10, and at the bottom is a door, and when you open that door, some of you are gonna jump ahead of me, and that's okay too. At the bottom, there is a door, and when you open the door, it's gonna be a sanctuary where you will find peace and comfort as we work through some of these issues. So imagine you're in the elevator going down the steps. You're on step 1, step 2, step 3, feeling yourself sink more and more. Step 4, step 5, step 6, step 7, step 8, sinking deeper and deeper into you, going inside deep. Step 8, step 9, step 10. And as you open the door, imagine whatever comes to your imagination. We call this your sanctuary. Just see what's there for you. Can be a place you've been before, can be mountains, rivers, can be cities, can be your own bedroom. Just see what comes for you. And just kind of look around and see what it feels like to be here. Feel the body. What does it feel like to be in this place? This sanctuary. And as you walk around and look around, find a comfortable place to sit down. It can be on the ground, it can be in the river, it can be on a rock, in a tree. Just find a comfortable place to rest. And as you sit there, invite any of the defense patterns that we've been talking about this evening, or any other characterologies or any information that we've discussed, to come into your consciousness, or maybe even appear in front of you, of ways that you maybe defend yourself, ways that you separate yourself from source. Just see what comes. Maybe nothing comes, that's okay too. Just kind of sit and soak up the energy in the sacred space, the sacred energy space. Just see what comes. No right or wrong. How do you defend yourself? How do you react under stressful situations? Do you withdraw? Do you reach out? It's just information in knowing how you do that. And then feeling your own inner strength. And so as you are become aware maybe of any patterns or defense systems, any ways that separate you from source, They're just kind of reactions. What I want you to do or encourage you to do is to wrap that system, or that can be a word, it can be a picture that you're seeing, and wrap that image in white light. Just imagine yourself wrapping that in white light. It's like we're giving that piece love this evening, because it has brought you to this place today of who you are. And it's just honoring it and knowing that it has been a gift for you and will continue to be a gift for you. We just want to transform it into more of an awareness, and being able to know that it's there is a gift. And as you work through it, then be able to find the other side of that. So as you look at it and create it and sound and surround it with light, allowing it to transform or dissolve or whatever is in your image. And as you allow that to transform and transmute, tapping into your body as you're in this sanctuary and feeling your own fullness, your own aliveness, your own essence, without the defense. Who am I? Feeling your aliveness and your fullness. As you sit in this sanctuary of love and light. So as you kind of finish this up in your own time, in your own way, knowing that you can come back here anytime on your own, we're going to begin to stand up and find the door to come back up the stairs or the elevator. So take a few minutes honoring this space, honoring you, honoring your defense patterns. If you were aware of any systems. Saying thank you. Thank you for this gift of aliveness and life. I'm going to step through the door. And on level 10, going up, 9, level 8, level 7, level 6, bringing yourself up, level 5, level 4, level 3. I'm going too fast, take your own time. Level 2. Level 1, and presencing yourself back in the room on level 0. Now when you're ready, you can open your eyes, presencing yourself back in the room. Any thoughts, questions, comments, reactions? These guided meditations that I've been doing on Monday nights and along with the course are kind of downloads. It's not something that I've done before. It's just kind of like, this is what Spirit is giving me to share with you. So feedback is always appreciated. So hopefully you had some awarenesses and some aha moments or whatever you need. If you want to share, you can.
What about if you are shifting into meanness that you've never experienced in your life because you've always sat there and quietly taken it, and suddenly you're starting to push back, but you don't even know how to behave because you've never pushed back before?
That's right.
It's hard. It's like you really have to even clamp down harder in a way, because you don't want to be that mean person, but you've always hold your tongue, be quiet, be silent, be not seen.
Yeah.
But suddenly you're just like, no, not anymore.
But standing up for yourself isn't mean.
No, but
It's what you've been taught to think it is.
it feels mean.
Yeah.
Okay, let me make some suggestions. There is a book called A Language of Emotion, because in the first year in the Barbara Brennan School, I discovered that I never felt anger. I felt it like this long, and it would go immediately to guilt and shame. So I never even felt anger. I didn't know what it was. And so learning how to feel it for the first time and then be able to know ways to handle it and deal with it is kind of where you're at. There is Carla McLaurin, who wrote the book Language of Emotion. She helped me understand, I think the book's over there if you want to check it out, understand the emotions and their purpose. And yes, they are on the third dimension. When we move more into the heart dimension, it'll be a whole different ball game. But to feel the anger and let it move through you appropriately instead of throwing it out at other people. Oops, I felt like I just threw you a bunch of it.
No, because it's like,
But free-flowing anger, one of the techniques that she uses is to imagine that like there's a fire in front of you and you just feel the anger and you feel it and then you just whoosh, you just blow it out. So your body is meant to feel that because
I felt it, but I've always turned it back in.
Exactly. And so it's learning how to feel it appropriately and let it move through you appropriately because it helps us actually create boundaries. Anger's purpose is to help us create boundaries because otherwise you become that doormat and like, oh, just do whatever
They
you
weren't
want.
allowed.
Exactly.
Boundaries
I
were not
understand.
allowed.
Exactly. And so it's the anger helps you create boundaries, but only if you're learn to use it appropriately. You don't want to do the hooks where you're throwing it out at everybody else. We don't want to kill anybody else. But that's what happens, I think, with this person that ends up, killing a bunch of people is they've kind of pulled it all in. And then it just kind of comes out as an explosion. So it's learning to deal with it appropriately and feeling it and letting it move through you. Sadness is purpose. We weren't allowed to cry if you were like me. And so sadness's purpose is letting go. Whenever you let go of something, whether it's a person, whether it's a place, whether it's whatever, it's feeling that and letting it move through. The body is meant to feel the emotions, but what we've done is learn to kind of hold it within. you know, or it's the grief or the whatever or the anger because I'm not supposed to feel it. And then so your body gets like this because you're holding it all in. And like you said, then when you learn all of a sudden, what do I do with all of this?
When you're done turning it inward.
Exactly. I would
You don't
recommend
know what to
Carla
do with it.
McLaurin's book because she has a lot of information about the emotions and how to use them appropriately. One of the other things she does is it's called conscious complaining. And she said, and you can do this with people if you know the person's not going to take on the energy, which there are some therapeutic people that know how to do that. But otherwise, you can go to a tree and say, blah, 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 you know, this is happening, blah, 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 and so you're getting it all out. I'm consciously telling this bush or this tree everything that's going on with me instead of recycling it in the head, which is usually what we do over and over and over.
Like the dump writing.
And so instead of recycling it,
Like dump
I'm going to
dump writing.
dispose of
Yeah,
it.
the artist way. was
Right.
that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly, dump writing.
Yeah.
So there are
Which one?
skills.
Dump
that-
I
writing.
call it dump writing.
Dump
You
writing.
dump the contents of your head down on
That's right.
paper.
That'd
Yeah.
be another way.
Same
to
thing,
process.
okay.
Same thing.
So then recycle.
Right. So it's learning skills and ways that are appropriate ways to deal with the emotions and whatever's going on with us. But yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. It takes a while to kind of shift this pattern of, okay, holding it in. Now what do I do with it? I'm feeling this anger. What do I do? You know, I don't want to spew it all over everybody. But there is a there is a way, another thing that I've used, which is called the silent scream. You know, because sometimes you just want to go. You want to scream, and so what you do, and you can go in the restroom anywhere, and you just kind of tense your body up like you're just really angry, and you just go. That's a small version of hair in my mouth of what you can do, though. But it's releasing that energy that you're holding that's pulled in here. Okay, give you some ideas. Anybody else? Great question. Great awareness.
And so even though you're going through the motion of that, it'll get rid of it? Just because of your intention?
Yes, it's the intention of releasing whatever is going
Oh,
through you
okay.
and not holding on to it. Bye, Suzanne. I know it's your bedtime. Yes, because, and of course it's the thought systems, and so sometimes if I'm constantly feeling that emotion or whatever, there's some kind of belief system that's stuck in my system that's causing me to react a certain way, and that's what we'll get into more as we look at the defense patterns. What belief system, you know, I'm not good enough, so I'm kind of always pulling myself back, and those kinds of things that as you transform and heal that, then it can shift. So, but yeah, energy is meant to move through us. You know, you look at little children, you know, when they're young, you know, they're crying one minute and laughing the next minute. And we don't do that, you know, because we're learned to, you know, whatever. You know, we learn these patterns, and so we're kind of stuck. So it's unraveling what those defense patterns are so that I can be like that little kid again that's crying one minute and laughing the next. That's the idea. Because that's who we're meant to be.
Sometimes I do that and I'm like, you are nuts. You were just laughing, now you're crying. Oh, now you're the opposite. But so it's not a bad thing.
No.
Oh, good.
No, it's not a bad thing.
That's real good.
Feeling it and being aware of it and letting it move through you.
She's like, I don't think so.
She just wants to stay here, so then you just have to leave her. Okay, thanks for coming, guys. We're getting out of the.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Yeah.